Hi, and welcome to Purple Coach Conversations with Anne and Anya. So our goal is to normalize, educate, and inspire conversations around inclusivity and diversity. So we're both coaches, mothers, entrepreneurs. We are not diversity experts, but our aim is to have conversations with people so they have something interesting and unique to say about their journey and experiences around diversity and inclusion.
So today, Irene Poku, who is a fellow Barefoot qualified business coach, is joining us. She's been coaching leaders around well-being and productivity through paradigm shift coaching and is also a support tutor at Barefoot. She raises awareness on unconscious bias to promote inclusivity, provoke thoughts to embrace cognitive diversity. So Irene, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. We want to hear your story, so we want to let you tell us about yourself and also how you came in this world of coaching that we three of us are.
Okay, thank you, Anne and Tanya. I'm very happy to be here. And my background is pharmaceutical science, and I worked in the pharma industry for around 20 years, managing clinical trials and also as a pharmacovigilance expert. I arrived at coaching because I lost my husband some years ago. And subsequently, my whole world came to a halt. He died with my dreams and aspirations. I had to start from rock bottom. I had to reassess my life, and I had to come up with my new goals, beliefs, values. And in that process of taking time out of my career and concentrating on my 3 children, I arrived at coaching because after I did a self-assessment, I really felt that I had the skills to be a coach, and I had the background to be able to support other individuals through a journey where they were in transition or at a junction when they get stuck. So I focus, as Tanya said, on well-being, diversity, and inclusion, and I just generally like to support people to reassess their lives and make decisions that suit them so they can live a well-balanced life for good well-being and stress-free life.
I'm so sorry about your loss, and it must have been a journey to have come to deciding that what you wanted to do was to help others in a moment so difficult when you're grieving and a lot of people might decide differently when things like this happen, and you decided to go embark on a journey of self-awareness and helping others. So I'm just curious, and I would like to hear a bit more about that, how that helped you in this very difficult time, that helped you so much that you wanted to make it your profession.
Yeah, I think that for myself, initially, I had to really get myself out of bed. I needed that inspiration. So I read a lot of self-help books. I needed to understand what, I think I was questioning, what's life all about? That was the first question. What's life all about? What do we really need? What's really important? And then I applied it to myself. What's important to me? And having done that interrogation of self, I realized that the things that mattered to me prior to my bereavement no longer had that meaning that I had attached to it. And therefore, I had to reassess what my values are. And in that sort of self-interrogation, I realized that a lot of people are programmed to live life a certain way, live life according to what the world expects of them, rather than what they want of themselves. And so when I had done that, I had gone through that process for myself, and I changed my life, and I saw how drastic I had changed my life from where I was, which was okay. It was lovely. I had a lovely family. I've got 3 lovely children. There was nothing wrong with that life. But now I live a life that's so fulfilling. I know, it gives me great joy, and that's what I want to share with others.
That's really beautiful to hear you say that. And I think such an important point as well, that, we're kind of conditioned by society or religion or norms and cultures and so on to live your life a certain way that fits with expectations of that thing that is feeding our way that we must live. And I can imagine it must be really like just freeing as well to come away from that and build your own path that feels authentic and real to you. And I'm just wondering how much, since you've become a coach, how much of that experience do you think was led on, first of all, by the fact that you are a coach now, or the training for the coaching? And then, first of all, maybe just talk to that, and then I'll follow on with my question after that.
Yes, since I became a coach, I think that the process of training to be a coach changes you as you go through that process, because there's so many ways that we think outside of the box, so that it challenges your thinking as you go through the process. So definitely by going through that process, even though I had already made that decision, I can be a coach, I can support people. Trust me, I didn't know what I was putting myself forward for until I went through the coaching process. So that definitely has helped me to really embed the learning, the thinking, the psychology of the human being. And I'm able to make decisions that feel right, because I know my core values, I know my beliefs, and I know my authentic self.
Oh, that's brilliant. I think, the whole process of coaching and being able to discover your true self in that sense. And I'm wondering, from one Black coach to another, what has your experience been like when we talk about diversity and inclusivity in the coaching world? How has that looked for you, from, first of all, from a personal perspective and from an institutional perspective, if you think about the challenges that they need to tackle around diversity and being more inclusive?
From a personal point of view, a lot of people in my circles had not even heard of coaching or had not been coached, and therefore it was really difficult for them to really understand this journey that I was on. And since qualifying, I've had to do a lot of coaching of people around me so that they get a better understanding. And from an organization point of view, I think that typically coaching is given to the top executives, which means that when people have not reached that sort of level, rarely do they get that opportunity. I've only ever heard of it given to managers who were being managed out, as they say, because the employer could not find any other ways to, manage them out. So I think that the lack of diversity is mainly because it's reserved for the top executives, and very few people have access to it, although probably the people who need it most do not have access to it. And until you've experienced it, you don't get the value. And I think that's where, people of, probably ethnic minorities probably get very little coaching within organization unless they are top executives.
And if you speak to a very good point there about seeing the value in something, because unless you see the value in something, you're not going to invest in it. Whether it's from a work perspective, so I'm going to get some executive coaching or management coaching, or even I'll ask my line managers for this because I see the value in it. And from a personal perspective as well, so like a personal development perspective. And it's that kind of lack of exposure, I think, that exists in the ethnic minority quite a lot, which is unfortunate. But how would you resolve that in terms of raising awareness of coaching in the ethnic minority communities?
I believe that the employers have to really bring coaching to probably to line managers, and managers manage through coaching, and that would mean that a company would have to adopt that coaching culture and then disseminate it downwards so that everybody gets to experience it. And it is at that point that people who are hitting the glass ceiling will have access to it. And it's probably the coaching that would enable them to rise above that sort of feeling of, that limiting beliefs that stops them from making, getting the right promotion or getting to the right sort of career because they feel they don't have the skills, or they just don't believe in themselves because they've experienced a lot of prejudice.
It's very true. It's a very good point. It brings me to my second question, and it's, following on from the lack of diversity and inclusivity. And again, we know we've seen this, we've heard it paraphrased in different ways. But, when you talk about a hierarchy in society, we see it at work, you see it in Western culture, where ethnic Black people or people of color are the minorities, are considered minorities. And so there is a hierarchy where we start off with a white male, and then between the white male, at the absolute bottom, you've got the Black female. In between, then obviously you've got various combinations of gender and races and so on. So as someone who is a Black woman in the coaching industry, or even just, a Black person in a Western society, does this hierarchy seem true to you? From a personal perspective? And secondly, how would you go about combating it in society in general? Not necessarily in a corporate world, but just in general.
Yeah, I think I've experienced it. But personally, what I do is I would always not adapt to the status quo. Once I experience it, I acknowledge it, because you can't be naive. You acknowledge this has happened. I've been discriminated against, but then I don't let it hold me back. I dust myself, and then I go on and I look for the next opportunity. As much as there are so many people out there to put you down, there's equally as many people who would see the value in you and help you, succeed. I think, when you think about that circle of influence and the circle of concern, thinking too much about how racist or, prejudiced people could affect you would limit you greatly. Think about your circle of influence. Focus on what you can do for yourself. And that's what I've always done. I don't allow, a setback to stop me. I would always forge ahead. Yes, I acknowledge it's happened, but then what's the next thing forward? I just move forward.
I love that. And that makes me want to ask you, since George Floyd, in your circle of influence, have you seen any positive change?
Yes, I definitely have armed myself with the knowledge. I have read a lot. I've read every book that I could get my hand on. And now that I've got the knowledge, I'm able to, I feel confident to call it out. Whereas previously, my strategy would be the moment I sense that I'm not valued, I initiate my exit plan. I just have to leave because I didn't have the confidence to confront such issues. Now I've armed myself with the knowledge so that I can call it out, I can challenge it, but not in an aggressive or disruptive way, but rather to educate whoever I'm dealing with, so that they become aware of their unconscious bias. Because now it's become apparent to me that so many people have said and done things without really understanding the implications of their actions or their words on the other person. So for me now, what's crucial is the ability to be able to call it out, not be disruptive, but rather use that opportunity to educate. And that would kind of help people to all change behavior.
That's great to hear. Do you find that on the other end, because this is you doing the work and educating, but do you find that people are more curious to understand you better and your journey and where you're coming from, and are doing the work to improve themselves?
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think
I think, I think a
sorry,
lot
go
of people want to do something. A lot of people don't even know, because I had friends who said to me, I want to say something, but I don't know what to say. I want to do something, but I don't know what to do. It's up to us to educate ourselves.
I think it's so true. And I love what you said about calling out things without being disruptive, because it then continues the agenda of what you're trying to do. Because as soon as it becomes aggressive or disruptive, or carries a tone of shaming and blaming, and don't get me wrong, I think there's certain companies and people who do need to be called out in a shameful manner for their actions or their words. But I think that it's all about the intention of what somebody says, whether it's said with malice or whether it's said just in a bit of a I don't know any better because I just don't know any better. And therefore taking the stance of, okay, let's educate you to do better and to know better and do better. But I love that aspect of it's not in a confrontational manner, because then people just stop listening, isn't it? You just kind of put up a block and they start listening to respond as opposed to listening to understand and get educated and learn something new. So I love that aspect of it.
Yes, that's how we came up with the Purple Coach conversation, and then I, in thinking that we wanted to have the conversations rather than calling out, but making sure that we would bring something interesting and unique to say that people could relate to, and make sure that they can say things in a normal way as well. To talk about a black coach, white coach in a normal way, that it's normal to see the differences and to talk about those differences as well. And I wanted to ask you, just as a follow-up of that, since George Floyd and all the protests that we've had in 2020, do you feel like you've been able to make a difference in your community? And what do you think? What would you like to do more in the future to make sure that this work carries on?
Yeah. So in my coaching, definitely I'm a diversity and inclusion champion. As you said earlier, I ask the questions to provoke thoughts. I raise awareness for people to have, to allow them to think outside of their own view, their existing views, so that they can be more exclusive and also embrace cognitive diversity. I'm also, since George Floyd, I felt strongly that I needed to take action, and I applied to be a school governor in a deprived area. And I'm taking my skills and my knowledge to the school, which requires improvement, to bring diversity in the leadership and use, my coaching skills, my lived experience, everything that I could bring to the leadership team to help promote that cognitive diversity and that inclusivity in their leadership.
That's absolutely fantastic, Irene. I really salute you on that, because I think it's this kind of like changes and that kind of action that makes a difference in society. And I have to admit, when you first told me about working as a governor on the school board, it never crossed my mind to even apply for such a position. But the impact that you have trickles down to so many other lives. So I congratulate you on that, and well done. And I think it also gives other people ideas of how they can also make an impact. It doesn't have to be the status quo that everyone else is doing. It's like, let's think outside the box. Let's think about what we can do for our communities, and however we can dedicate our time and efforts to make that change that we want to see and want to be a part of, really, for ourselves, for our children and generations to come, that hopefully they don't have to be sitting having these kind of conversations about the lack of diversity or the lack of inclusivity in their workplace or in society in general. See how long that takes.
Yeah, I think there are, it's not just school government. There are several support groups, there are charities, and even in the workplace, sometimes when we have to put ourselves forward to represent our department, I think it all helps when, every little helps. Just put yourself forward, get a seat at the table and get your voice heard.
And I
Exactly.
think coaching gives you so many tools to be able to have conversations like that, and especially um, if you become richer with knowledge and understanding when it comes to diversity and inclusion, and you use the tools of coaching, I find that you become a better coach as well. Just knowing to coach a variety of people, not just people that have gone through the same journey as you, but that have had different experiences as well, and becoming richer in that front. And that's what I think, especially white coaches have to do more work on that, because as you said, it's when you're an executive coach, when you graduate from coaching institutions, and there's not much emphasis on that. You gotta take a step back and realize, who you're starting to coach, and are you seeking diversity, etc. So I find that one of the key messages for us in Purple Coach Conversation is to kind of question where you are, and are you seeking diversity? Are you looking for diversity? Because there's no excuses anymore right now. There are a lot of fantastic authors, coaches that are Black, that are minorities, etc. You can look and you can find that there's no more excuses, and you need to seek outside of your comfort zone. And coaching is so fantastic that it shouldn't omit that aspect. It should be part of the learning journey as a coach, and ongoing journey of the coach to become better human and better coach.
Exactly.
Yeah, love that. Yeah.
Mm. So we have a little bit of fire questions for you, and I'm looking forward to hearing them. I want to start with one. So I'm not going in the exact order, and I'm sorry, but I want to start with your favorite quote, because I think it ties so beautifully, your journey as a mom who lost someone, husband, and who's become a coach. I'd love to hear your favorite quote.
My favorite quote is, if it's important to you, you'll find a way. If it's not, you'll find an excuse. And I think that it's my favorite because I always think, whenever I find myself making an excuse for not doing something, I think it's not important to me. And when something is important to me, as soon as I can identify it's important to me, I'll find the childcare, I'll find the person with the knowledge, I'll find whoever I need to or whatever I need to do. And then I just go, I jump and I look for a parachute on my way down. And it always works.
I love that. Jump and look for a parachute on your way down.
That's a beautiful one. And yes, you can choose to let your past define you today, or you can decide what you want to do, with your future, and redefine your past.
Exactly.
It's kind of what you're teaching us with your journey today, from having lost your husband, 3 young children, deciding to help others, becoming a coach, and looking to become governor in a school, and helping others. So very inspiring journey of yours.
Thank you. I'm so determined to make every breath count, because based on what I've been through, I don't really take life for granted. I'm not waiting till I retire or for my kids to leave home. All those things or those sayings don't appeal to me. I'm living my best life and I'm living it now.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
And your favorite book?
Oh, my favorite book is Untamed by Glennon Doyle, and I think it speaks for my personality. It's about, not allowing the world to dictate for you, but being your true self, not being a people pleaser. And it's a book. I've loved it since the day I picked it up. And it resonates with me, whatever she's saying. It's all about being your best self rather than what the world expects you to be.
Yes, being the cheetah. Fantastic book. And the last fire question is, who should we be listening to or following?
So currently I'm following Rene Carriol, and he is the top coach for executives, and he's been doing a lot for Black Lives Matter. He goes into organizations to promote cognitive diversity, inclusive leadership. And what I love most about what he does is every day he sends one quote and one liner to inspire you to think outside the box. And when I receive it every day, I pick up my journal and I do some wild writing. So I will recommend anybody to follow him, because he's definitely promoting diversity in organizations, and there's so much about him on YouTube, on LinkedIn, on so many of the social media platforms. He's such a fantastic storyteller too.
Thank you for sharing his name. And you get it on email, the quote?
Yes, so you subscribe and he sends it to you weekdays every morning.
Do that.
We'll definitely sign up for that. Irene, it has really been an absolute pleasure having you on Purple Coach Conversations today, and thank you so much for the time that you've shared with us. Thank you so much for everything that you've shared with us as well, in terms of your experiences and being so open and candid about it as well. We appreciate that as always. We're going to put the details of the books and everything that so we're going to put the details of the books and that you've shared with us as well. And as far as you're concerned, how can people reach out to you or get to know you better?
So I'm on LinkedIn. I think that's the main platform that I operate in. And then it's Irene Poku at Paradigm Shift Coaching. And please permit me to recommend another book, which is Diversify by June Saffron, which it's another fantastic book to raise awareness not only about racism, but classism, sexism, ageism. So it's a fantastic book to read too.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for that, Irene. Again, we'll put the details of that book as well on this recording, so everyone feel free to check those books out, follow Renee as well, and get some inspiration from him. Follow Irene as well on LinkedIn. And I just want to say thank you once again to everyone for watching. Please do like and share the video as well with anyone that you think will benefit in your community, and let's just get the word out there about how to be a better person, be more anti-racist, and have a more diversity and inclusivity attitude about the way we live our lives. All right, thank you everyone.
Thank you for having me.
See you soon.
Thank you, bye.
Bye.
See you soon.